React Native Firebase dynamic links allow us to do a lot more with a simple URL. Things like checking if an application is installed and installing it if it's not, or going to a certain route if it is installed. We're going to take a look at installing React Native Firebase dynamic links in this video, as well as connecting it up to Firebase and creating a few links to see what we can do in terms of interactions. My name is Adrian and I do videos around design and development, so if you haven't already, hit like and subscribe and let's just jump straight into it. If you've been following along, we've been building out our React Native Firebase application. And as part of this installation for dynamic links, you will need to make sure that React Native Firebase is installed properly. You can do this by checking out my previous videos in the description below, but if you've already done this, we can move ahead to installing React Native Firebase dynamic links. What we're going to do is we're going to jump into the website here for RN Firebase, and we're going to go to their dynamic links page. In here, we only have a single step that we need to really do to get it up and running, which is to add it to our dependencies here in our package.json and install it. So I'm just going to run yarn add at React Native Firebase /dynamic links, and we're going to install those to get them up and running. With iOS, we will need an extra step here where we install the pods, and that's simply done by browsing into iOS and typing in pod install. But if you already have that ready, then we should be ready to get started. So I'm just going to relaunch our React Native Android application here by running npx react-native run-android. We're going to take a look at how we add it into the code of our application. What we want to be able to do now is open up Google Firebase by going to console.firebase.google.com. We want to open up our React Native Firebase project. In here, we've got all the tools to have a look at creating some dynamic links. So on the left here, we're just going to browse down to nearly the bottom here for dynamic links. We're going to select that to create our very first dynamic link. Let's hit get started here. And what I want to do is create a test example page. So I'm just going to use this example over here and we're going to hit continue. What I want to be able to do is create a URL which automatically works with this domain that we have here, which is nfcexample.page.link. And we're going to hit finish on that. In this example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new dynamic link. And I want to be able to create an extension here. So for this extension, I'm just going to write in test and hit next. In here, we're going to set up a deep link, and then deep link will allow us to go to a URL if the app isn't installed. Otherwise, we can go somewhere else. So in this example, let's just go to google.com if it doesn't work. And let's make sure that we have the syntax on that over here. And let's say Google results. Let's hit next on that. The next thing we want to do is we want to have a look at whether this link opens up in a browser or an iOS app. Since we're doing this on an Android device, I'm not going to worry about this part here, but if we were, we could select a device here, or we could add a new device to register. But for the time being, I'm just going to select it to open in the browser. For the Android version, however, what we're going to do is we're going to select up a deep link in here, and we're going to select our Android application in here. We're going to have the app, if it's not installed, send users directly to the Play Store. But if it is installed, we'll select to make sure it opens up the app directly. This is just an example of how we can get the dynamic links to do different interactions depending on what you click. Let's select next on that, and we'll just have a look at this last bit of data, which is some social meta tags. And these are useful if you're sharing, for example, on social media, where you could add an image in here, maybe a different title and description. But for the time being, we're not going to worry about that, and we're just going to hit create. A quick note here is that if, for example, you don't want the app to go to the App Store when you select this link, you can still get it to go to that custom URL we set earlier. Like in this example here, where we'll select it to go to Google instead of going to the App Store. Since we don't actually have a Google Play app page for this just yet, that's what we're going to select up, and we're just going to edit this link, and we're going to give it another test. So that's it. Our dynamic link now in React Native Firebase is all set up. And we can actually test out this link directly in our browser and in our app too. So let's actually copy these link details out. Here it is, and here's the link. The link itself has a URL, which is nfcexample.page.link/test. And ideally, it should take us to the Google homepage when we open it up in a web browser. So I'm just going to open it up here and paste it in. And when we do get redirected to Google. So it's working well in our browser. But let's now test this out in our application. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the Google application over here. And since it's a brand new account, I'm just going to skip a lot of this section. And in Chrome, we're just going to paste it in and select it. And when we do, we can see that it immediately takes us straight to the app, which is really cool. But what we're going to do now is we're going to close out of the app and we're going to uninstall it completely. Now that it's uninstalled, we should have a different deep link interaction. So let's open up our browser again and select it once more. And this time when we do select it, we can see that no application was loaded and it actually takes us to the Google URL. This is really a simple example of how deep links work. But if, for example, you had a news application and you browsed into a news article on a web URL, it could take you directly to that news article on an app. And I know there are certain apps that do this really well, like Reddit, for example. But React Native Firebase gives you lots of options there with dynamic links. So whether you're on the web, whether you're on Android or iOS, you get the choice of essentially how the application handles the URL. There are other cool things we can do with dynamic links. For example, if we wanted to listen to when a link has been clicked and perform a certain interaction on our application, we can do that. There is this function over here which checks the background here for dynamic links. So if the application has been loaded up and a link has been clicked, we can perform an action depending on what that link is. Let's actually copy this code over here into our application and give it a test. This is a brand new React app, so I'm just going to do a new component here, which won't really return anything, but we'll paste it here into our main app, and we'll customize it a little bit to see how we can get it to interact. We'll call this Listen App, and Listen App will use react.useEffect. And what we're going to do is we're going to check dynamic link, which we're importing, and we're going to see the initial link and check it. And instead of doing an interaction if it was clicked, I'm just gonna console.log it straight out. So let's console.logout link and maybe link URL. I'm gonna hit save on that and we're gonna refresh our application over here. I'm gonna also open up the console here and I'm gonna select it. And we can see that we already get some information over here. So this must be from when I previously clicked it. If I select it over here, and if I was to copy over the dynamic link once more to test out, we should see that interaction happen again. So I'm going to paste it in here, hopefully. Let's just do this now. And we're going to select it. And we'll open up our application. We can see we've got that console.log of our information here for the dynamic link. If, for example, we're checking for dynamic links directly while our application is running, there is also this interaction here that performs on foreground events, but it essentially works the same way. And this mostly covers how dynamic links work. There's lots more items you can do, and it really depends on how you want to customize your own application. But hopefully you enjoyed this introduction to dynamic links. My name's Adrian, and I do heaps of videos around design and development. So if you guys enjoy this kind of content and you want to see more like it, hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.